there's a law called double jeopardy that once you have been tried for a crime and acquitted, you cannot be recharged with that crime. My dad's innocent. He was proven innocent. After my dad actually finally confessed, it was a true gut punch. I don't think I've ever had that feeling in my entire life. I'm not sure if I ever will again. He did it, and he got away with it. And how he kept his composure and carried on, I don't know how you can do that. He let us down as a father. Absolutely knew she had everything to do with it. She's been a liar all her life and a manipulator. No doubt in my mind, she was responsible for this. I have such hatred for Marianne Shore and what she did to our family. I have no doubt in my mind that she was an evil person for the majority of her life. When I see these photos of my dad, it still is extremely hard to believe that he did what he did to another human being. I don't see it in him. My dad always came across as being very happy, good personality. He was never a grumpy person or sad. He would sit on the couch and watch TV and he'd laugh and, he seemed generally happy as a person. But when my mom and dad got divorced in 1973 and he took custody, out in public, he was a nice, likable guy. But at home, my dad was a little bit different. I would consider him to be a control freak. He wanted everything his way. Chores that you had to do, if they weren't done perfect, he yelled a lot at us. When my dad would come home, he would go immediately into our bedrooms and inspect to see if they were clean and up to his standards.
Junior!
And when he called me Junior, I knew something was not right. It was not going to be good.
I thought I told you to clean up in here.
You could see the stress. His face would get a little red. Veins are kind of popping out on his neck. He would call me stupid. The intimidation factor of him being in your face and yelling at you, it is a scary thing.
You can't follow simple instructions, can you?
My dad really never hit us, but I almost felt like I'd rather have gotten a spanking and be done with it than have to be yelled and mentally berated every day. And he would just say, "You've got 15 minutes to get this clean, and I'll be back to take a look at it."
There had better not be a speck of dust in here, you got me?
And then he would turn around and leave, and you would be doing everything you can to get it fixed the way he wanted it perfectly. But he would not let us get the vacuum cleaner out and vacuum the floor. We had to physically pick it up like it was a punishment to us. It was a tough time in my life. There were a lot of days it just wasn't fun to be in that house. To talk about Jan, you just rather be beat sometimes and have to put up with that. That is crazy. Oh, okay. The first time I met Marianne Shore was after my mom and dad got divorced. She was his secretary at work. She was probably in her 20s on business trips, and she was going to watch us while he was out of town. She seemed very nice, but it didn't take long for her to quickly assert herself. She let you know that she was in charge.
Big Alice Cooper fan, huh?
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, I like him too.
And one of the first times I realized that Marianne Shore was not quite who I thought she was one time she said, I will buy you every Alice Cooper album if you tell your dad how much you like me and how much you want me around. And if you don't, I will tell him about the cigarettes that I found in your room. And that kind of took me by surprise.
Where did you get those?
I basically pleaded with her to stay out of my room. It's none of your business. This is my stuff. She looked at me and laughed and said, I can do whatever I want. And if you don't do what I tell you or ask you to do, I will tell your dad.
Who's he gonna believe, you or me?
That's scary. What are you gonna do as a young kid? If he found out that I was smoking, I couldn't even fathom how mad he would get. I was scared to death.
Your dad comes home tomorrow. Let me know what you decide.
I did whatever Marianne asked me to do. I would tell my dad great things about Marianne Shore. All the time. Anytime I could. I would say, I really like Marianne. She's a really nice person. She treats us well. She takes care of us. She's really fun to be around. I really like her. You should keep her. And it was just a flat-out lie. That was a huge turning point in me realizing that she was not to be trusted at all. There were some things that were happening around our house that were causing a lot of tension. Things that we couldn't really explain. And a lot of it happened when my dad was gone.
What did you do with my shirt? What shirt?
My sister shared a room. And my oldest sister would have a shirt, really nice shirt. And somehow it would end up in my other sister's drawer. And it would have a burn hole in it.
I didn't touch your stupid shirt. Then how did it get ruined? How the hell should I know?
Normal, sibling rivalry. But these things with the clothes would happen a lot. Marianne Shore really never did anything to stop this at all. She just was there in the background. It almost seemed like she sat back and just let it keep escalating.
Get off me! Stay out of my stuff. Then you stay out of mine.
Later down the road, we figured out that Marianne was doing things like this to us in order to cause tension, because I think in her mind, she really wanted my dad for herself.
Why do you always accuse me of stuff I didn't do?
We told my dad it was Marianne. He absolutely did not believe us. He called us liars. You're lying. And I think it played into Marianne Shore's hands. She was manipulating the whole situation so she could get rid of us kids. She really wanted us gone at that point so she could have my dad, in the house to herself. But, we didn't know that she was just out of control. Once my sister and I figured out that, we weren't doing these things together, we were saying, this is not us. Marianne is doing this to us. And he absolutely did not believe us. Marianne was around a lot during these times, and she was in charge of us kids during those 2 to 3 week periods that my dad was gone. This one time, mysteriously, a hole got cut in the back of a brand new couch that we've got. It was a physical hole. It was about this big.
So, how was everything?
Not great.
Guess who found this hole? Marianne Shore found it while my dad was on one of these trips. And of course, she told my dad.
Junior, where are you?
And that was one of the worst days of my life as a child. My dad was so mad.
Who explained this?
What?
This!
I've never seen my dad this mad in his life. I mean, I think his veins were out 2 inches on his neck. He was purple red. He yelled at me easily for an hour. I just told him, constantly, over and over, I didn't do it. Why would I do it? Doesn't make sense that I would just cut a hole in the back of a couch. Why would you do that? And then there was Marianne Shore. She was comfortable, smirk on her face. Not saying a word, not looking up.
Look at her. She probably did it.
Stop trying to blame Marianne for everything.
As smart as a man as my dad was, he couldn't see through his rage.
Get out of here now.
Marianne Shore essentially truly succeeded in driving these massive wedges between me and my sisters and my dad.
I'm so sorry.
I just remember sitting in my room and crying for hours. And I mean, really, your mind starts to get dark. What can you do to her to turn the tides? I think it was probably as close as I've ever thought to ever killing somebody in my entire life. Like really wanting somebody dead at that point. Now, I'm a smart guy. I'm not going to kill somebody. But man, your mind goes into some dark places at that point. I just wanted to escape. I'm going to have to take a break for a second. Dang, I didn't expect that. Well, that took me back to a very dark place. They broke up several times, and it never lasted that long. They always were back together. But when they broke up for good, I'm pretty sure I was 15 or 16 at the time. It was just me and my dad. My older sister graduated high school and she had moved out. And my other sister followed shortly thereafter when she graduated.
Going away again?
Yeah. My dad said, hey, I've got to go on a trip overseas and it's going to be a little longer than my normal trip, about 30 days. He said, I'm not sure when I'm going to be back.
This time's gonna be a little different. I should be back in about a month.
Is everything okay?
Everything's fine.
And normally when my dad would leave, and he would always call a couple times to check on us, and then he would always have somebody staying with us. Well, that time he actually gave me money for groceries and just said, take care of the house. I'll see you when I get back. He didn't have anybody checking in on me. So it was weird. It was very strange. He was gone, and we did not hear from him until lawyer. I found out he actually went to prison during that time for 30 days. He was charged and convicted of tax evasion. And Marianne, apparently, when they broke up for good, she was going to get revenge. Marianne had turned him in on the tax evasion charge. I'm not sure my dad knew at the time she was the one that turned him in. But when my dad showed up in the taxi to come home, Marianne Shore was with him. The first time I met Brenda I was bartending, and he brought her in and introduced me to her, and they had a couple of drinks.
Girlfriend? Brenda, my son Michael.
She was a very quiet person. Didn't really say a lot. Beautiful smile. Very nice. She seemed so different from Marianne. It was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, wow, he's actually met somebody that seems very cool, very nice, genuine. They seemed very happy together.
Been dating for a little while now.
That's great.
Maybe that's the last we'll see of Marianne Shore. This is a picture of him and Brenda. He looks really happy, but she doesn't have this big smile on her face. She kind of looks indifferent to me, which, I don't know if this was at a time where they were having some issues. I feel like maybe she's not as happy about their relationship as he is. And I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I read from her face. There was a night that my dad, wanted me to come over for dinner because he had an announcement to make. We were all sitting at the table. My grandmother was there. My aunt was there.
I have some big news.
And he made this announcement that he had asked Brenda to marry him, and she accepted, and he gave her a ring.
I proposed to Brenda, and she said yes.
We were like, wow, congratulations. Usually, when you make those announcements, your significant other is there.
That's great news, Dad. Where's Brenda right now? She couldn't get out of work in time to be here.
Looking back on that, it was very, very strange that Brenda was not with him when he made that announcement to our family. But I just thought it was the way he did things, That's just the way my dad is. I wrote it off to the quirkiness of his personality.
We haven't set a date yet, but as soon as we do, we'll let everyone know.
I had no idea that she had given him the ring back or told him that she wanted to call off the engagement. We didn't know that at the time. That was never made clear to any of us. And only came out in the days after Brenda disappeared. I was working a bartending shift at the restaurant, and I got a call.
Forte's Tavern.
And it was my dad. He was crying, saying that Brenda was missing. They can't find her.
Whoa, Dad, slow down. What's going on?
I've never heard my dad cry before. And he was sobbing, crying, like crazy crying.
Okay, I'll be there as soon as my shift ends.
I finished my shift and I went over to my dad's house where my grandmother was and my aunt was there. And they are sitting around the kitchen table and my dad is crying hysterically.
Dad, are you okay? What happened?
Brenda's missing.
I have never seen my dad in this state. He was telling us the story of how they had spent the day together and then they went out to eat at one of their favorite places to eat, and then she left to go home.
She said she called me when she got home. She never did.
The police found the car on the highway that night. The car had a flat tire, and the car had been broken into, and there had been blood found, and the radio was stolen.
They said there's no sign of her.
They don't know what happened to her, and he feared the worst. I mean, the whole situation situation was extremely uncomfortable, seeing my dad just sobbing incoherently about how she's missing, she's gone, she's probably dead.
Calm down.
And he kept saying, I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I love her so much.
She's gone. I know.
Looking. When they found Brenda's car on the highway, there was blood on the seat and the stereo was gone. That was not Brenda's blood. It was not my dad's blood. It was somebody out of the blue saw a car on the highway and they broke into it and stole the stereo. And that threw their investigation off from the very beginning. Brenda's family really didn't like my dad, so they were very adamant that they absolutely knew it was him that did it. They just kept reiterating in the press that he was still their number one suspect. The focus turned on my dad. The newspaper every day had articles about this investigation and my dad, but my dad was never came across as worried about anything. He was very adamant that he was innocent, and that's what he portrayed. When I got done getting ready for work and dressed, I opened up my door, grabbed my paper, and when I unfolded my paper, they had found Brenda's body. It was the picture of my dad, Mel Ignato, arrested for the murder of Brenda Sue Schaefer. Big headlines, and your heart sinks, you're just like, oh my God. And of course I turned on the TV and the news is just nonstop about my dad and the arrest. He was charged with murder. I still didn't believe it, but it's devastating to see this. It just seems so surreal, like this couldn't happen. Marianne actually led the police to the body, so now they had a body. And that was a shocker because, we had no idea Marianne Shore was in the picture in my dad's life at all. The FBI and the police had been tracking my dad, and they had his phone bugged. And Marianne Shore, she lived in a house that had woods behind it. She called my dad and said she was really concerned because they were going to develop this land and that they will find that site that putting pressure on Marianne Shore. She finally cracked and said, I can take you to where the body is. Marianne Shore told them my dad murdered Brenda, killed her with chloroform, is how she actually died. Suffocated her. Supposedly after sexually assaulting, torturing her. It's just horrific. When we found out that Marianne Shore had been involved some way and she led the police to the body, it was like a light bulb. She did it. My dad had nothing to do with that. That was Marianne Shore. She is crazy enough to have killed Brenda because she wanted my dad. The body was buried in the woods behind the house she was renting. There was no doubt in our minds that he was innocent. He was innocent. It was not him. It was Marianne Shore. The first time I saw my dad after he got arrested, the things that my dad said were very reassuring to me.
I had nothing to do with this.
I didn't do this. This was the work of Marianne Shore. I'm absolutely convinced of this. Stay strong. Don't worry about a thing. This is all going to work out.
She's setting me up.
You know, didn't show any signs of being distraught or distressed. It was that calm facade that he had and confident. I felt very good about what was going to happen with my dad.
I'll be out of here in no time. Okay. I'll see you soon.
But looking back, he really didn't mention a whole lot about Brenda. It was more about Marianne and how he couldn't believe she would have done it, as opposed to grieving about Brenda. And I don't think that I ever really questioned my dad if he killed Brenda. I never asked that question. Did you kill Brenda? During his original trial for the murder of Brenda Sue Schaefer, Marianne was their star witness. I was not in the courtroom for her testimony because I was a character in the newspapers. We heard about this testimony. Marianne alleged that he sexually abused, assaulted, tortured, and murdered Brenda Sue Schaefer. She was testifying about helping dig the hole for Brenda that my dad and Marianne buried her in. My dad drove that car to the freeway, and she followed him in another car. And he got out and took a regular, household steak knife, stabbed the tire, and then they drove off and left the car. But where was the evidence of all of this? They didn't find any DNA evidence on Brenda. No proof whatsoever. Marianne Shore told them they took pictures of him, but the police searched that house twice. They didn't find anything. She's been a liar all her life. We did not trust her at all, and we had no doubts in our mind that she was the one that killed Brenda. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. That was my father's defense. If Marianne Shore couldn't have Melignato, no one can. She set him up, and we believed it. We just thought that she was going to take my dad down any way she could. Now, this is Marianne Shore during the trial on the stand and telling the story of what they did to her. She didn't shed a tear. She was emotionless, but she's pretty adamant here that she did not kill Brenda Sue Schaefer, and trying to pin it on my dad. I had nothing to do with it. He's guilty, and he knows it, and I know it. And nobody believed her. Nobody, the jurors didn't believe her at all. When they first came out with the not guilty, I mean, you talk about the weight of the world off your shoulders. I mean, it was amazing, that feeling that you were vindicated, you know, that we knew all along my dad didn't do it. This proves us right. You could tell he was extremely emotional. The picture of joy. This picture was the day after my dad was acquitted. There was a big press conference on the steps of the courthouse. And man, is he happy. I mean, the look in his face of relief. I'm standing right by his side. We were absolutely ecstatic. He was proven innocent. We stood by him. This is a great day. Looking at this picture now, knowing what we know, I just want to punch him in the face, you know. I hate to say that he's my dad, but you just want to be like, man, what a liar, you know? Oh my gosh. Commonwealth's attorney in order to testify against my dad that she would get leniency. I believe she thought she wasn't going to serve any time whatsoever, but I believe she spent at least two to 3 years in the federal penitentiary. When my dad was arrested, we came to realize that we had, to sell his house, his car, his boat, his possessions to come up with money for his lawyers. So when my dad got out, he came to live with me. He didn't really go out in the community too much. He pretty much stayed at home. 9 months passed. Thursday night was my bowling night, so my dad was sitting on the couch watching TV. My dad would be up all hours of the night, so I knew he'd be up when I got home. And I guess I got home about 11:30 at night. And I walked in and the lights are on and the TV's on, and there's my dad's partially drank Coke on the table next to the couch, and he wasn't there.
Hey, Dad, I'm back.
I'm like, yeah, that's weird. He's probably downstairs doing laundry.
Good night.
I went to bed. And when I woke up, the lights were still on and the TV was still on. I happened to look and I saw all kinds of messages on my phone. Mike, have you seen the news? Give us a call. I think one of them was my aunt. Called my aunt. She said, Mike, your dad's been arrested again.
What do you mean?
She was like, they found the evidence that implicates him in the murder of Brenda. They found the film that Marianne Shore told them they took pictures of. It was in his old house.
How is that possible?
The new owner of his house wanted to replace the carpet. And so they had a carpet company come in and they were tearing out the carpet when they uncovered a hidden air duct in the floor. The carpet company found this bag of jewelry and undeveloped film. And knowing the history of the house, they immediately called the FBI.
I gotta call you back.
And they developed it. And it was everything that Marianne Shore told them. She was telling the truth, but nobody believed her. I hit the floor. I really felt like the biggest heavyweight boxer punched me in the stomach, and I couldn't stand. And I just hit the floor. Once they discovered the true hard evidence, the smoking gun, as you will, that showed my dad, doing these things to Brenda, they couldn't recharge him with murder. Once you have been tried for a crime and acquitted, you cannot be recharged with that crime. But the federal government wasn't giving up. They were now charging him with perjury. I went down to the courthouse. My dad had agreed to admit everything, and he stood up on that stand in court and admitted everything. Said he was sorry. That was a tough day. It was arguably the worst moment in my entire life. I can't tell you how mad, how upset, how disappointed that we all were. When my dad was convicted of the 2 charges of perjury in the federal trial, he was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. I'm a little torn on that because I am a believer in the death penalty. I think, if you kill somebody, you shouldn't live. I mean, I really, truly believe my dad should have been put to death for that. Brenda's family, they really, really got cheated out on what should have happened to my dad. I did not see my dad for 7 years. Did not go visit him in federal prison. I didn't want to. I felt so betrayed and so used. There was no way I was making a trip to go see him. He can rot in hell. He asked if he could come and stay with me. I had to do some serious thinking about it. And, you know, I just decided it was probably the right thing to do. He was my dad. He needed a place to live, and he had nowhere to go. My dad and I had some conversations about what had happened, and he did apologize to me during some of those, you know, face-to-face conversations, but we really never got into it very deep. I don't think I ever really believed that he truly accepted the responsibility. My dad ended up staying with me for probably about, 9 months to a year after he got out of federal prison. I'm not sure I ever really forgave him. I loved my dad enough to take care of him and do what I felt like I needed to do, in his later life. I'm not sure I've ever forgiven him for what he did. Once my dad moved out, I would go by and check on him all the time. On Monday morning, on my way into work, I decided I'm going to stop by and make sure everything's okay.
Hey, Dad, open up.
I knock on the door, nobody's answering. His van is out in the driveway. So I open the door, and what I see is it's just a horrifying scene. I see this broken glass table, and there is blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh crap, this is not good. This walker was laying on the ground, and the leg was bent into this coffee table. I followed this trail of blood into his bedroom, and I walked into his bedroom. I turned around, and there he was up against the wall, on the ground. He crashed through a glass coffee table, cut his arm really bad, and ended up bleeding to death in his apartment. He didn't grab his phone to call for help. I think he just decided it was time for him to lay down and die. When I saw my dad on the ground and the scene, I honestly felt relieved. In my mind, I felt like, is this finally over? Can we, as a community, finally move on from this nightmare that he caused? That was a tough way to die, but I'm a big believer in karma. When Marianne and my dad murdered Brenda, they had her taped to this glass coffee table. And it was ultimately a glass coffee table that did him in. That is karma, the definition of karma. It got him. I recall hearing about Marianne Shore's death really didn't happen too long after she had been released. She died of either cancer or a heart attack. Marianne Shore's role in this, it's really hard to wrap my mind around to this day. I still believe she's the one that got my dad to kill Brenda. Her ultimate goal in life was to be with my dad, and she would do anything and everything possible to make that happen. he did it, but I think it was her that pushed him to do it. Over the years, I've put a lot of thought into what was going through my dad's mind when he decided to kill Brenda. The only thing that I can think of is that she was the icing on the cake to this ultra successful man who's on top of the world. And when she decided to break up with him, I think it crashed his dream. I just think he lost his mind. And to this day, I still can't really understand it. I tried not to harbor all that, anger. It's just not good for you. But I have such hatred for Marianne Shore and what she did to our family. She was an evil person for the majority of her life. And I don't know how she convinced him to do it, but I, in my heart, believe she was ultimately pulling the strings.